next question. This is question 3A. So let me just write the A over there. Now this is a word problem that you have to rewrite as an equation and then solve it. We're told that the product of two positive consecutive odd numbers is 5,183, and we have to find out what those two numbers are. So if you let the first one be equal to x, then the second odd number should be equal to x plus 2. Because if they're odd, let's say the first odd number you think of is 3, the next odd number that follows 3 is 5. And how did I get from 3 to 5? I had to add 2. Because if I add 1, if I'm at 3 and I add 1, I end up with 4. 4 is not an odd number. So I want consecutive. Consecutive means they follow each other. Okay, so if I pick an odd number x, the next odd number is x plus 2. So we're told that the product of my odd numbers, so I've written it out, so I've translated the product of two consecutive odd numbers. So this is a product of two consecutive odd numbers. The first odd number says x, the next one after x is x plus 2, and this should be equal to 5183. Okay, so we can multiply out the brackets. You have x squared plus 2x. This is equals to 5183. So you should be able to see that this is a quadratic equation, and you can factorize it. It can be factorized. You can complete the square, or you can use the formula. Because the question is not specific, it is up to you to choose a method. I prefer to use completing the square because factorizing it might be a little bit tricky. I would take this to the other side, and then I have to think of two numbers that when I multiply them, the answer is 5,183, and when I add them, the answer should be 2. So essentially I'll just have to be thinking of what those two odd numbers are. So because I don't know what they are, I am limited to the other two methods, either complete the square or I should use the formula. Okay, so I will choose to complete the square. Now remember, to complete the square, what we need to do. Okay, so to do that, I look at this number 2. I will divide it by 2 and then square it. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, and then 1 squared is 1. So I will add 1 on both sides, because what I do on one side, I should do on the other side. Okay, so this, the difference between this step and that one is this plus 1, and because I've added 1 on both sides, I have not changed anything. Now this is a perfect square. I can factorize it. So this is x plus 1 squared, and then this, just two numbers that I can add and see what I get. So this is 5184. Take the square root on both sides. I have x plus 1 is equals to plus or minus the square root of 5184. Okay, so when you take the square root, you have x plus 1. This will be equal to plus or minus 72. Okay, now if you read the question, you will see that it said two positive odd numbers. So I am going to ignore the negative one and only look at the positive one, because if I take the negative one, I'll end up with two negative odd numbers, and the question says it must be two positive odd numbers.